I'm Marion Ellery, 67. The house was quiet enough to hear the hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. At my age, sleep comes lightly, in thin layers, and it does not take much to pull me out of it. That night, it was the vibration of my phone on the nightstand. One short buzz, then silence. I reached for it without thinking. Old habits. A mother never really stops checking. The screen lit my face in the dark. And there it was, Rowan's name. And beneath it, a message I read twice before my mind caught up. You're just a mistake I want to forget. The words did not hit like a slap. They settled, slowly, like cold water sinking into old bones. I sat up, the blanket falling around my waist, phone trembling faintly in my hand. For a moment, I could hear Rowan's voice as a child, her laugh, her questions. The way she used to fall asleep on my chest during those years when it was just the two of us against everything. But the voice on my screen did not belong to the little girl I raised. It belonged to the woman she had become. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed half a sentence, erased it, typed something else, erased that too. Every version sounded like pleading or explaining or justifying my existence to someone who had already made her verdict. I set the phone down on the bedspread. My hand stayed there for a long moment, flat against the glowing screen, as if the heat of my palm could soften what had already been said. Then I flipped the phone face down. The room felt strange without the instinctive rush to fix, soothe, or make sense of whatever Rowan threw at me. For the first time in decades, my body did not leap toward her pain, or her anger, or her cruelty. I sat back against the headboard, breathing slowly, deliberately. The quiet settled around me in a way that felt different stillness, not emptiness. I did not text back, not because I did not have words, but because every word I could send would reopen a door I no longer wished to stand in. And somewhere in that quiet, long before dawn, long before decisions solidified into actions, I understood that this message had not undone 40 years. It had revealed them. By morning, I was already thinking about the parts of my life I had allowed Rowan to hold, and how different things might look if I began to take them back. I woke before the sun, the way I always have, and made tea without turning on the lights. The quiet gave me space to think. And thinking sent me backward, not just years, but decades. I was 28 when Rowan's father left. One morning, he set his coffee cup in the sink, said he was tired of being needed, and walked out the door. That was the entire explanation. I remember standing in the doorway with Rowan on my hip, her hair still damp from her bath, whispering, "It's just us now." She touched my cheek and said, "Okay." Mama, she was 2. By the time she was 5, I was working 2 jobs, clerking evenings at a grocery store and shelving books at the library on weekends. "You look exhausted, Mrs. Larson," my supervisor used to say. "I am," I'd answer, tying my apron tighter. There was no point pretending otherwise. Meals were stretched with beans and rice. Doctor visits were postponed with excuses. Rowan never knew. She'd sit at the kitchen table with construction paper and tell me, "I'm making you a crown because you work harder than queens." I kept every one of those crowns in a shoebox. I volunteered at her elementary school because she asked me to. "Just come for the reading days." She'd beg, tugging my sleeve. I always showed up, even if I'd worked late the night before. Once, her teacher whispered, "You're doing beautifully on your own." I smiled, but it hurt in a way I couldn't explain. When Rowan went to college, I cried for a week straight. I paid her tuition with grants, loans, and every overtime hour I could grab. Later came rent help, therapy bills, and emergencies she never apologized for. "Mom, can you just cover this one thing?" she'd say. It was never one thing. By her late 20s, something had changed. Her voice grew sharper. Conversations ended with sighs. "You don't understand my world," she'd tell me, as if understanding had ever been a condition for love. When she repeated some of her father's old lines, "You're too emotional. You make everything heavier," I knew exactly where she'd learned them. The last time she came over before that dinner downtown, she stood in my kitchen looking at the stack of envelopes on my table. "You really should get better at managing your life," she said. No softness, no hesitation. I washed the mug she had used after she left. My hands shook the entire time. Rowan chose the restaurant. She always did. A loud place in downtown Portland where conversations had to fight their way through clinking glasses and polished laughter. I arrived early, smoothing the front of my cardigan as she swept in with that brisk confidence she wore like perfume. "Mom, you could have dressed up a little," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "This is a celebration. I thought this was about your new position." I replied, "It is." She sat, already scrolling through her phone. But image matters, even for retired people. A server came by. Rowan ordered wine I could barely pronounce. When he turned to me, I said, "Just water." Rowan gave a thin smile. "Right. You're on a fixed income now," she said. "I keep forgetting." I folded my napkin in my lap. "I'm comfortable enough." She laughed lightly. "Comfortable, Mom. You're one emergency away from being a burden. You should plan better." The words landed hard. I tried to redirect. "I'm proud of you, Rowan. You've worked for this promotion." She shrugged. "Someone had to break the family pattern. I mean, look at your life." She gestured vaguely toward me. "You never really figured things out." A pulse hammered at the base of my throat. "I figured out how to raise you. Alone. That was your choice," she said, lifting her wine. "Don't put that on me." The conversation never recovered. Her phone buzzed constantly. I ate quietly, pushing food around my plate. When we parted outside, she gave a distracted hug. "Try not to overthink everything," she said. "It makes you difficult." I walked to my car slowly, letting the night air settle the sting. It was close to midnight when my phone lit up again. I expected a simple good night. Instead, I saw the line that would change everything. "You're just a mistake I want to forget." The morning after Rowan's message, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook I had not touched in years. I opened it slowly, the way someone might open a door they are no longer sure they want to walk through. I wrote her name at the top of the page. Then I began listing. First, the apartment in Northeast Portland. My signature sat on that lease like a quiet promise. When Rowan first asked, she said, "It's just paperwork. Mom, you won't actually have to do anything." I had believed her. That was 3 years ago. Then childcare. Just 2 days a week. She'd said when my grandson was born, "You love spending time with him anyway." I did. But love did not make it less work. It also did not explain why the daycare always called me first when he had a fever. Next, the monthly transfers. $20 here, $50 there, sometimes $200 when her paycheck hit weird. I wrote the amounts out in words, each one suddenly heavier. Rowan always insisted they were temporary. They never were. Car insurance. One winter, her deductible jumped. She'd stood in my doorway holding the bill. "Can you just cover half? I'll pay you back." She never did. I added it to the list. Medical copays, urgent care visits, prescriptions she forgot to pick up, appointments she canceled last minute but still owed fees for, all in my handwriting now, staring back at me. The list stretched down the page, then on to the next. Marion. I looked up. It was Leah, a friend from the library who had stopped by to return a book. She glanced at the pages uncertainly. "What are you doing?" "Just writing some things out." She sat across from me, soft-eyed but direct. "You look shaken." I pushed the notebook toward her. She scanned a few lines, then closed it gently. "This is not generosity." She said, "This is extraction." I swallowed. "She's my daughter. Helping isn't the same as being used." The words landed sharper than she intended, but they did not cut, they clarified. My breath went shallow as something inside me clicked into place. A truth too long ignored. I took the notebook back, smoothed the page, and kept writing. The numbers were not what hurt. What hurt was realizing how invisible all of it had become, even to me. When I reached the bottom of the page, my hands were steady. My heart was not. The day after I finished the ledger, I moved quietly, as if any sudden noise might undo my resolve. I started with the apartment. The leasing office receptionist recognized my voice immediately. "Ms. Ellery, calling about the renewal?" she asked. "Yes," I said. My fingers tightened around the phone. "I won't be co-signing again." A pause. "Should I notify your daughter?" "No." I answered. "I'll handle that myself." When I hung up, my breath trembled, but it did not break. Next was the emergency card Rowan and I had shared for years. She had called it our safety net. I had been the only one paying the balance. I dialed the bank. "I want the card canceled," I said. The representative asked if I wanted to keep a backup account. "No," I said. "Steady this time. Close it. All of it." When I ended the call, the silence in my kitchen felt different, roomier. Somehow, I turned to my pension paperwork. The stack I had ignored for months while saving Rowan from one unexpected bill after another. My dentist had warned me that delaying the surgery on my jaw would only make things worse. I filled out the forms to schedule it. For me, not for whatever Rowan might need next. Around noon, I sat at my dining table and began writing a letter. Not an angry one. A clear one. "Rowan, I love you, but I cannot support you the way I have been. I cannot pay your rent. I cannot cover your emergencies. I cannot be the first call when something breaks. I am 70 this year, and I have to take care of myself now." I stopped writing when the weight of the truth made my hand shake. I folded the letter neatly and slid it into the drawer. She wasn't ready to hear it. I wasn't ready to send it. But it existed now, and that mattered. After lunch, I walked to the attorney's office a few blocks away. The clerk greeted me kindly as I updated my will, moving certain assets to my grandson and a small portion to a literacy program I had volunteered with for decades. Outside, the wind felt colder on my cheeks. My last stop was my therapist's office. She listened as I told her what I had already done. "I'm tired of being a silent wallet," I said. She nodded. "What you're doing is not punishment. It's protection." I exhaled slowly. It doesn't feel like leaving her. It feels like coming back to myself. When I walked home that evening, Rowan still had no idea that the ground beneath her was already shifting. The calls started at 9 in the morning. I let the first one ring out, then the second. By the third, Rowan's voice burst through my voicemail, sharp and frantic. "Mom, the leasing office says the renewal can't go through without your signature. Why didn't you tell me? Call me back." 10 minutes later, another message. "My card just got declined at the pharmacy. Did you change something on the account? What is going on?" At noon, she texted, "Daycare called me." Me. Why are they calling me? I sat at my table with a cup of tea, letting each notification buzz against the wood. My hands stayed still. My breathing stayed steady. The next call was less frantic and more furious. "Mom, answer the phone." "This is ridiculous." I put the phone on silent. By 3, there was pounding at my front door. I opened it slowly. Rowan stood on the porch. Cheeks flushed, hair wild around her face. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Why would you sabotage my lease?" "I did not sabotage anything," I said. "I simply chose not to renew." "You cannot just back out." "I have a child, Mom. I have responsibilities." "So do I." She blinked, thrown for a moment. My insurance lapsed. They said the payment never went through. I stopped covering it. You cannot be serious. Her voice cracked. You are really doing this now. After everything I have on my plate, I stepped back, leaving the doorway open, but not inviting. Rowan, I am not disappearing. I am just stepping out of places I never should have been holding. She stared at me as if trying to recognize someone she had never met. You are unbelievable, she whispered. I cannot rely on you for anything. I felt the words strike, but they did not sink. I stood there, quiet, steady, watching the moment she realized the well she had drawn from for decades was no longer bottomless. Rowan stood frozen on my porch, as if the air between us had thickened. Her fists were clenched at her sides, but her eyes were wild in a way I had not seen since she was a child. Mom, you cannot do this, she said, stepping forward. You cannot just pull the rug out from under me. I kept one hand on the doorframe. I did not pull anything out. I stepped back. That is the same thing. Her voice cracked. I have a child. I have bills. I have a life that depends on you being reliable. I have a life too, I said, quietly. She stared at me, stunned. You are choosing now at your age to suddenly take a stand. Why to punish me? No. I said, not to punish you, then what? She threw her hands up. You are abandoning me, Mom. That is what this is. I shook my head. I will always love you, but I will not let you speak to me as if I do not matter. She looked away sharply, breathing fast. So everything I have said, every fight now, you are using it against me. I am not using anything. I said, I am listening to you, to how you talk to me, to how you see me. She stepped closer, desperation slipping through the anger. I am under pressure. You know that. You know how hard things are. Why would you make them harder? You make them harder, I said gently. When you treat me like a tool instead of a person? Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I need you. I know, I said, but you need me in ways that keep me small. She flinched. You're twisting everything. No, I said, I am ending the version of my life where my love was the only one in the room. For a long moment, she said nothing. The anger drained first, then the indignation. What remained was a hollow kind of confusion, as if she were seeing me without the layers she'd buried me under. Mom, she whispered, reaching out. I did not move forward, and I did not move back. We stood there in the doorway, the space between us heavy with everything that had finally surfaced. The house felt different after Rowan left my porch. Not quieter, just emptied of something I had carried for too many years. That first night, I sat at the kitchen table long after the sun went down, my hands resting on the cooled wood, waiting for the familiar urge to call her, to fix everything. It never came. What came instead was a slow, heavy ache behind my ribs. The next morning, I forced myself out of bed and walked to Laurelhurst Park. I moved slowly along the path, nodding at other early risers. No one knew that I had spent the night mourning a daughter who was still alive. No one asked why I kept pressing my fingers to my chest, as if smoothing out something that wouldn't settle. Around noon, I went to the community center for the seniors pottery group. The instructor, a soft-spoken man named Leo, handed me a lump of clay. Just breathe and keep your hands moving, he said. I tried. The clay wobbled under my palms, collapsing every few minutes. You're doing fine, he murmured. Things fall apart before they take shape. His kindness nearly undid me. In the afternoon, I dialed my sister's number. We had not spoken in almost 6 years. When she picked up, her voice was wary. Marion. Yes, I said, I would like to visit you in Salem, if you're willing. A long pause. Then, come on Saturday, I'll make lunch. When I hung up, I sat very still. The fragile beginnings of old family stitching itself back together. Dinner that night was simple. Soup for one, I set the table anyway. One bowl, one spoon, one napkin. I made myself eat slowly, tasting every bite. Afterward, I washed the dishes and let the warm water run over my hands longer than needed. I thought about Rowan often in those days, not the woman who sent cruel messages. The child who drew crowns for me, who curled in my lap during storms. I let myself miss her, honestly, without pretending anything was different than it was. The grief came in waves, but the space beneath it quiet. Honest was beginning to feel like something I could stand inside without breaking. It was late spring when Rowan finally called. Her voice shook around the edges. "Mom, can we talk? Just coffee? Nothing heavy?" I let a breath pass before answering. "Coffee is fine." At the cafe on 38th, noon. When she walked in, she looked smaller somehow, like the anger she used to wear as armor had thinned. She sat carefully across from me, fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. "I'm trying," she said quietly. "I know I hurt you. I'm healing," I replied, "but I won't pretend nothing happened." Rowan nodded. "I don't want you to fix my life anymore. I just want to try being in it differently. That's all I can offer too," I said. "A different way, with boundaries." For the first time in years, she listened without arguing. No raised voice, no accusations. Just two women, mother and daughter, meeting on level ground. When we stood to leave, she hesitated before hugging me. I didn't step into it, but I didn't pull away either. It was tentative, honest. Enough for now. I walked home under Portland's soft drizzle, my coat damp, my chest strangely light. The future wasn't certain, but the life I was walking toward finally felt like my own. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Your support means the world to me.